First though, the Police Minister, Lisa Neville, returned to work yesterday. It's about 6 months ago. She went on leave for emergency surgery. It was originally going to be a couple of weeks. Then she was ordered to stay away for 3 months and then further time. She was struggling with a disease not a lot of us know much about, Crohn's disease. She's had it for about 30 years, managed it with secret surgeries and tablets until February this year when it caught up with her. Stress is not good for Crohn's. It is a disease of the bowel, and it's debilitating. It's the only way to put it. Devastating, debilitating on your life. But she's back at work now. Lisa Neville, good morning.
Morning, Neil.
So did the doctors sign off on you talking to me or not?
Oh, they were a bit sceptical at first, but I assured them, no, they were good. Yeah.
So how are you? How's it going?
Look, it's good. It was a really, I would say, tough time, and there were certainly times, particularly when I was in intensive care, and I, just wasn't making any progress where I thought I wasn't, going to be coming back to work, and was absolutely, kicking myself for having left it so long during last year and beginning of this year to get proper treatment. But I am, I think probably from about the end of June, when I put out my last statement, is when I started to feel that I could, get through this and come back.
Well, what is Crohn's disease? I believe it's becoming more common, about 1 in 250 people. What is it, and how long have you had it?
So it can be anywhere in your sort of gastric tract, but it's basically an ulceration and inflammation. In my case, it's nearly always been in the small intestine of my bowel. And some people have it in the large bowel, colon. Some have it in other parts. It can shift around. Often even when it gets really bad, which is what happened with me twice, I've had surgery where, including this time where I've had a chunk of my small bowel out. It can come back again. It can cause things called fistulas, which are sort of basically abscesses. I've had a few of those, but you get pain, you get fever, and I think the most common thing, certainly for me, but for lots of people with Crohn's, is chronic diarrhea.
That must be chronic diarrhea when you've been working as you have, in and out of government cars, in and out of aircraft, particularly working as a police minister. How did you cope with that? I mean, if you'd get onto a helicopter, you wouldn't know whether you're going to have an attack.
So I used to take a lot of, gastro stop or Imodium, and codeine is very good at blocking you up as well to try and hope you get through that time. It's partly why I made a decision around emergency services, because that was particularly often you can't plan ahead for that. But, I think last year, for the first time ever at work, where I was doing a press conference with the Premier, where I had to say to the Premier as he was introducing me, could somebody else speak first? So that's probably, the hardest thing often people get to talk about.
Yeah.
I know where all the toilets are, and I have a toilet app on my phone. So, it is it's one of those sort of both embarrassing things that people find very difficult to talk about, but for people with Crohn's, it is, a really significant thing, and, you're often making up reasons why you need to use a toilet of someone's restaurant or something like that. So, because it can be, comes on very suddenly.
Were your colleagues aware of what was happening?
Look, Daniel's always known I've had Crohn's, and he knew that I was having, I'd have moments where I wasn't as well, and then I think I was okay, I'd go on a special diet and basically give up anything with fibre in it, and then say, oh yes, I was better. But there was no doubt that I was. I kept it relatively quiet and secret, and I think the fact that we were all working from home made that easier, because I think if you were always facing face to face with people, it would have been much clearer to people that I, wasn't doing that well, as it may have been to me as well. I mean, I knew something, it wasn't perfect, but I thought I could manage it. And
was your life in danger? Was your life in danger?
Well, when I went to the hospital, I had a bowel obstruction, and certainly with bowel obstruction, so basically nothing can get through. I had a partial one during the week, and it got worse and worse, and I started vomiting, so I went to the hospital. That can perforate your bowel, so it can put your life at risk. And I had a fever, and so they pumped me through a lot of steroids and antibiotics and pain, a lot of pain, because I was in quite a lot of pain most of, last year. But, Panadol didn't quite cut it by that particular point. So there's no question it can kill you, and you've just got to try and make sure that you're doing the right things. And I left it, way too long. I shouldn't have waited till I got to that point.
You got a lot of attention when you were ill, and you went to Port Douglas and were photographed having dinner and with somebody, and there was a lot of criticism of that. Any regrets about going?
Look, I didn't. I had. If the doctors had said don't go, I would not have gone. At that point, I'd had the bowel obstruction that had started to clear. I'd had an MRI that showed that there was significant inflammation. They did not know at that point whether it was just the Crohn's or whether there was like a stricture. Basically without surgery, it was not going to get better. They needed to give me a chance to, I'd been on the steroids. I was taking a drug called Humira. You inject yourself. At that stage, I was having I had 4, and then every week. They were following blood tests. Their view was to take a break and see whether it helped with the inflammation before deciding on the surgery, because no one wants surgery can give you relief, but it can also, large numbers of people get it back again in exactly the same spot and can cause more surgery. So, I don't regret doing that. What I was certainly very upset about the coverage, because it did cause worse symptoms when I was up there. But,
oh, really?
Because it's a very stressful thing that your life's up, as if you're not sick. And that's the thing about this disease. Sometimes you can people say you look really well, and in fact you may look, you may feel the worst.
Why did you come back? I mean, you're talking about stress. You're talking about difficult life. It's a very difficult and stressful life being a politician. Your health, you'll obviously have these health issues to deal with your whole life. Why did you come back? Yep. Why not just say, I've done my bit, I'm going to go and do something else?
Yeah, and as I said before, Neil, there was certainly a couple of months in there where I really didn't think I was going to come back. But I love what I do, and in the end, as I started to get better, as I started to talk to the doctors about what their view was, I felt that I wasn't quite ready to give up this job. I do absolutely have to try and get the balance better than I had before, which is why I did give up emergency services. It's just not compatible to do that and support communities like they need in an emergency, and to give myself some better balance between work and this. So it played on my mind a lot. It really, I spoke to my family, my son particularly, who I want to be around for as he grows up. And, so it was, in a way, a difficult decision, but I feel like it's the right decision.
Okay. Just a couple, if I may, just before we wrap up, a couple of news-type issues. Hotel quarantine, you're back in charge. You're in charge of the Mickleham development as well, the purpose-built facility. Yep. How's that going? Have we actually dug a hole in the ground yet?
Yeah, so because it's Commonwealth land, they're doing the construction of that. It's expected that the first stage, which is the first 500 beds, will be built by the end of the year, and second stage not long after that. And then we'll have about a month where CQV goes in there to train staff to work in the facility.
So when will the first people be in there? When will the first people be in there?
Probably about the end of January.
Okay, that's good. The other thing, World Tennis wants an answer on the Australian Open. They reckon the players won't cop hotel rooms again. Any ideas on development there? Any hopes there?
Look, all I'm aware of, and second day back, I don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Is what I've heard the minister say, that they are in discussions, and I'm sure they're in quite intense discussions with him about that.
I'm sure you've reflected a lot while you're away, and I was thinking about the trust in police, and that's your area, or has been. Do you think the police have been damaged through this whole epidemic, the whole pandemic, rather?
Look, one of the things I've got on my list as a priority is, I don't know about its damage. I certainly think it's had an impact on police themselves. Yeah. I mean, I think I reflect on it's a similar timeline, from the bushfires, where they're out in communities, from the first lockdown, hotel quarantine, taking on all of that. They have, I think they've done it really hard, and I think they've, copped it from some areas in the community unfairly, in my view. And I think this is, I want to, as Police Minister, be there to support them as much as I can and reassure them of the support that I have for them and the job that they're doing. And I think that overwhelmingly the community have huge respect for our police.
Look, thank you so much for your time. A quick tip on how to reduce stress. What are you doing? I'm
doing breathing, a bit of breathing.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Breathing exercises and I'm trying to do a regular walk, if not daily, at least every second day.
Well, welcome back, and next time we talk, we'll be allowed to have a fight, will we?
Oh, I don't. I think you have to keep my stress right down. I think that's what my doctors would say, Neil.
Take care. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thanks, Neil.
Lisa Neville, she was Emergency Services, the Quarantine Minister, Police. She has what's effectively 6 months with an awful condition. Not a lot known about it. I think as we come through this era, we might have further talk to Lisa Neville about the area of Crohn's and sufferers of Crohn's and what can be done. It's just debilitating, totally debilitating.